Welcome to this iteration of MSI-sponsored Ingenuity Marketing's webinar on filling your pipeline. This is Wendy Nemitz, and I'm coming to you from downtown St. Paul, Minnesota, smack in the middle of a snowstorm. Of course, in January, that's not unusual, and it's better than the minus 30 temperatures we have been suffering. Because, of course, when it snows, it warms up around here to like 20. So if you're anywhere in the world that's better than here, lucky you. Let's talk about filling your pipeline, specifically about generating leads. And we developed this webinar because we think a lot of law firms and accounting firms we've worked with come to us because they're frustrated with what they've been doing to develop new relationships in the world. It used to be, meaning before the Great Recession, it used to be that if your young partners went out and developed a good network of friends and business contacts, they would be able to develop new business as they became more senior partners. And what we have found since the recession, and it may not be true for all of you, but it certainly has been true for a lot of you, is that the old methods of developing business, of relying on people's family, friends, and professional networks to bring in all the leads a firm needs just isn't working anymore. And so we are getting very specialized in developing ways to fill your pipeline, to generate new leads, and also to nurture the leads that you have. I am Wendy Nemitz, and I am the founding principal at Ingenuity Marketing Group, and I enjoy talking. As a matter of fact, my mother would probably say a webinar is my cosmically perfect job. I love my job, and I've been working with CPA firms since 1987 and law firms since 1994 on the issues of marketing and growth. We do quite a bunch of different services at Ingenuity Marketing Group, but really when we work with firms, we focus first on problems. Problems like the things we used to do just don't work well anymore, or all our partners are on a different page as to what's unique and even special about our firm, or we're getting cleaned by the competition. We are giving up work and projects and clients that really we should be getting, and we don't know why. And so what we usually go is from helping you diagnose what's going on to helping you find a good marketing solution that fits specifically in your market area for your firm, and most importantly for your professionals, because each culture of each firm we work with is a little different. This is my team. Now when I go to an actual seminar and my team are on the projector behind me, usually someone calls or raises their hand and asks me this question. No, they don't ask me, do you hire men? Because they assume that we do, that we just don't have any right now. They say, really, can people as gorgeous as that also be brilliant? And my answer is yes. This is what we do. We provide full marketing solutions. And so really we start in the middle of a firm on the growth foundation, providing the brand, the strategy, and the tools that you need to go out there and develop the relationships that will make a difference to your practice and to your firm's practice. We also focus on retaining clients. We focus on developing your reputation as a firm or in certain niche markets. We focus a lot these days on lead generation. I would say that of the people who call me, the vast majority are saying, hey, we need some help getting some new people into the pipeline. We help people nurture leads, and we also help teach and build sales processes for firms that we work in. So we work in quite a variety of things, but again, only in a very specialized market of professional service firms. So let's talk about how you fill your pipeline and what it looks like today. About a year and a half ago, I sent my most diligent online researchers out into the world and said, what does it take now to make a professional service sale? You know, in the 1980s, when I started in this business, I read a whole bunch of books about selling, and they said that on average it takes 5 to 7 touches for a sale to happen, and that the average salesperson only touches a prospect 2.5 times before they give up. And I thought, okay, good to know. Got to push them to keep calling and keep talking and keep showing up. Well, in the late 90s, I did that research again, looking for how many times it takes to have a conversation with people or to touch people in some way before they're interested in buying from you. And the number had gone up to about 8 or 9, I think. Can't quite remember, but it was a few more. And so last year we looked out into the blogosphere, the internet, and all that wonderful collection of data that's at our touch thanks to Google. And we decided that actually what it takes now to get people to close a professional service sale is 14 touches. Now it says 9 over 5 on the slide because 9 of the touches have to be marketing touches, one to many. So they read about you in the newspaper, or they read a blog you've written, or they hear a speech you've done, or they sign up for a webinar you're giving. Something that is a touch from your firm but not necessarily a personal one. But 5 of those touches in our experience have to be more on the experience scale, where you go and tour their plant, for example, or they meet you at a seminar, or you take them out to a football game or play golf with them. Something that is much more an experience of the people in the firm as opposed to the information about the firm or the thought leadership of the firm. So when we think about the new pursuit taking 14 touches, what that really does, besides depress all our accountants and lawyers who think, how can I pick up the phone 14 times and think of something to say to people I barely know? It does depress you, but we've thought of ways to make that much easier for the professionals so they don't have to pick up the phone or go to lunch 14 times when they're not even sure if there's work there. So that's what we're going to talk about today. The other graphic I want to show you is this cold, warm, and hot graphic that looks a bit like a Target, but of course nothing like Target store logos. When we think of cold marketing, we think of marketing to people who have never had any experience of you, who may or may not need your services, and pretty much marketing to the general public. When we think of warm marketing, we're talking to people that have some experience of you and or your firm. For example, it might be, say you're in a chamber of commerce in your town, and they might also be in the chamber and have met you a few times. Or maybe you have a billboard on the highway and they drive by that billboard every day. Or maybe they work in your building or went to college with you. There are people who are not yet your clients, but there is some experience with you already. So there's a bit of a tailwind. And then hot marketing is marketing to people who like you, trust you, and want to do business with you. And this, most importantly of all prospects, includes your own clients. And there are some very specific hot marketing techniques that will really help you cross-sell or open up your own clients for referrals. Now, people say to me, what's the ROI on marketing? And I'll tell you, in professional service marketing, because of its long sales cycle and because the sales are not generally being done by people who are professionally trained salespeople. So the actual quality of the sales process varies a lot from place to place, from person to person. We have some numbers, though, that you can go by to see if your programs work. In cold marketing, it's 1-to-1. So if you spend $50,000 on a cold marketing program, marketing to people who have never heard of you before, and you get $50,000 back, you have a win. But of course, because of CPAs and lawyers and the natures of your businesses, usually you get repeat business from those clients. And so usually that $50,000 grows into something more. Now, when we go to warm marketing, marketing to people that you already have some kind of conversation going with, they're aware of you, or maybe you have a turkey grower's niche and they're turkey growers and they've heard of you. The ROI gets better at 7-to-1. So we're looking for a fairly significant return on the investment of dollars in warm marketing. And in hot marketing, frankly, I want 15-to-1. I want a huge bang for the buck. Now, here's the funny part about these circles. I've noticed that individuals and firms are usually really good in one of the circles and really bad in another. So, for example, you might be a firm that is fabulous with your clients. You do everything but put a chocolate on their pillows at night. You take them out to lunch, you take them to golf, you go to their weddings, you do all sorts of things, but you don't meet new relationships in the cold circle. Or I have met a few people who love to meet brand new relationships. We call them the woos. They win others over. But yet they're not really good at keeping people close to them until they're ready to buy. In other words, keeping them through the warm cycle. And so generally, both individuals and firms are really good at one circle and really bad at another. Now, if you want to kind of even out your business cycle instead of feast or famine, or sort of looking like a roller coaster, what you want to be able to do is do a few activities in each one of those circles as a firm and as individuals every year. Some cold marketing that gets you out there in front of new people. And from now on, we'll be calling that lead generation because it starts relationships with new people. Some warm marketing that keeps you in front of people and draws people closer to you, which from now on we'll refer to as lead nurturing. And then some hot marketing, which is just plain old-fashioned client-centered and referral source-centered marketing, which will be the subject of another webinar. You ready to hear more about lead generation and lead nurturing? Let's go. Well, first of all, I want to distinguish clearly between lead generation and lead nurturing. I want to take a sip of my tea, and then I want to tell you that some of the activities work really well for one, but not for the other. And we've done a lot of practicing in these activities and had a few failures, so we've gotten very good at it, and I'm glad to share this wisdom with you. For example, webinars. I love webinars. They are an inexpensive way to present how you think and what you know to your target audience. You know what they're terrible for? They're not good at lead generation. So if I sent, for example, this webinar out on an email to a list I bought, people who had never heard of me, they were all cold, and said, sign up for my wonderful lead generation webinar, virtually no one signs up for a webinar from a group or an individual they've never heard of. It just doesn't work. So webinars are great for lead nurturing, but really, really tough in lead generation. Here is the exception. If you own a niche market, if you're very famous in turkey growing, for example, and all the turkey growers have heard of your firm, they might attend your webinar. But really, most of the time, we only attend webinars by people we've either heard before or groups we know or groups that are sponsored, like this webinar today is sponsored by MSI, by people that we know and trust. So they're kind of lousy for lead generation, but they are absolutely fabulous for lead nurturing. So the difference between lead generation and lead nurturing is lead generation starts the relationship. Lead nurturing nurtures the relationship until they're ready to buy. Ideally, lead nurturing should also bring them closer and closer to you and constantly show them that you would be the right provider to buy from when they have the right need. Does that make sense? Well, let's roll on. So let's talk about some of the techniques we're going to talk about today, and I've really divided them into what they're most effective for. Now you can see that some of the things, like the second thing on the lead generation list and the first on lead nurturing, is Speakers Bureau. That's because if you have a Speakers Bureau, which I'll go into more detail about in a few minutes, it is very good for nurturing leads. As a matter of fact, it's the #1 lead generation technique that we use at Ingenuity. It's also great for nurturing leads because if you go and speak, for example, if I speak to MSI, there will be people who have never seen me before and they generate a lead. Or there'll be people that have heard us once or twice and thought we were smart but forgot about us, believe it or not. Or they were too busy then, or they didn't have a need right then. And we get in front of them and they think, wow, they did that cool program on networking last year, and I really should bring that into my firm and have them teach people how to be better networkers. So some of the techniques are great for both, and some really work better in one or the other. And I'm going to be giving you a few tips and pointers on how to do each one of these techniques better. And you are welcome, of course, at any time to send in a question, and our Elizabeth here will notice it because I won't. But she'll bat me on the arm or kick me under the desk and say, hey, Wendy, you have to pay attention to this question because somebody needs to know more. Let's go on. So the #1 technique we're going to talk about is cold calling. Now, clearly, cold calling is not a lead nurturing technique. It's a lead generation technique. So here's a few things that you probably want to know. First of all, a 2 to 10% response rate is something that you should get up and do a victory dance and ring a bell and uncork the champagne about. I have been doing cold calling, especially combined with mailing, probably since the early 90s when I worked for a private business college that generated student leads. And I will tell you that the response rate for things are all over the map, and there's not a perfect science to it. However, I will tell you that if you just decide to buy a list from some guy and write a letter. Oh, wait a minute, let's just have our assistant write the letter, and then proof the letter, and then make it super technical jargon about, say, a new healthcare requirement or something, and then send it out and do nothing, I guarantee that's a big zero right there. So that I can guarantee is how to get a zero, but how to get a 10% response is tough. We recently did an invitation for the financial services arm of a CPA firm we work with in a different state. And we sent out an invitation to a barbecue. And the barbecue invitation was super cute. And the kind of invitation you look at and you think, oh, that sounds fun. And then that was followed up with a phone call. And they got a tremendous response with it. So some of the tips with cold calling is it takes a long time to learn how to do it well. And as a matter of fact, I personally have a rule. And here's my rule about cold calling. I don't allow CPAs or attorneys to do it. Now, attorneys, it's very difficult for you to do any cold calling because it's a solicitation. So it's really tricky to do this at all. But I personally do not allow the CPAs or the few attorneys who can do it to get on the phone, pick it up, and do cold calling. Why would I say that? Why would I even say, no, I won't take your money if that's how the project's going to go? Because it doesn't work. As a matter of fact, I've tried it a good dozen times when they insisted that we develop the mailer and send it out, and they would do all the follow-up calling, and not one time have they even gotten through the whole list. Face it, you went to college, so you'd never have to pick up a phone and cold call anyone. So don't pretend this is something you can do. If you need some really great cold callers, we know several groups that can do that. Give us a call. We'll be glad to refer you or glad to help you with your program. Now, here's the thing about cold calling. It requires a lot of perseverance and just plain willpower. So I really recommend hiring someone to do that for you. And the most important thing about these cold calling leads is really think about where these people are at. So say you're a business owner and you're running your turkey farm, and you get a call from the local CPA firm. First you get a letter and you think, that's interesting. And then you get a postcard and you think, that's pretty good. Then you get another postcard and say, yeah, I do have that problem, but I kind of like my CPA. He was my dad's CPA, and he's only 172 years old. He still has some life in him. And then you get a call from someone. Now, it's different if you go to your banker and say, hey, I need a new CPA firm. My current CPA firm is 172 years old, and they don't have computers yet. Then you're a hot lead. You're a cold lead if someone calls you in your office and says, hey, could we come out and tour your turkey farm and maybe review your tax returns and make sure that you're getting all the tax savings you're entitled to. It's a completely different emotional state of the buyer. So the most important thing about cold calling, and the time that almost everyone who's tried cold calling says, oh, it doesn't work. We met with a few people. They met with a few people, but they weren't yet ready to buy. So all cold calling leads will have to be nurtured. The chance that you go out and meet, you have your great caller goes and makes appointments for you, and you show up in the appointments, you're trained, you do a great job, and that person buys on the spot, pretty slim. You're just generating leads. You're generating the opening of a conversation. And you have to be willing to commit to that conversation for, could be a year, could be 2 years. Oh, once I asked a room full of CPAs and lawyers, what was the longest anyone had ever chased a lead? Someone that they felt should buy from their firm and buy their services. And one guy raised his hand and said he's been trying to get the same lead for over 20 years. It just takes a while to get people to buy from you. Now, in Ingenuity, not 20 years, but actually at 3 years, if we've been talking to someone for 3 years and they don't buy from us, and someone on our office actually gets them to close on a deal, I buy them a pair of shoes. They're known as shoe prospects. And I very rarely buy shoes because, to be perfectly honest, if you're talking to people after 3 years and they haven't bought from you and they've had many conversations from you, they are so kicking tires. Let's talk about microsites and niche marketing. I love both of these techniques, and they really go together. Now, a lot of firms started niche marketing even as much as 20 years ago. The very first CPA firm I ever went to work for was called Olson Thielen, still a vibrant firm in the Twin Cities. And they had this terrific niche in independent telephone companies. And when it came to independent telephone companies in Minnesota, of which there were many, of course there's not any now, but there were many back then, they all knew about Olsen Thielen. So many of them used Olsen Thielen. As a matter of fact, if you weren't using Olsen Thielen, you were considered kind of a maverick. So they owned the niche, and niche marketing has been around for years and years. Now, what updates niche marketing is microsites, using your online tools to really expand your market position in your niche. Now, here's how some of the basics for using microsites or niche marketing. Here's some of my tips. Number one is you have to actually decide that you're going to own the niche. So sending someone every once in a while to the construction association and having them arrive late for lunch and leave early, I have to tell you that's not going to cut it. If you're going to do niche marketing, you really have to be one of the rock and roll stars in the niche so that when anyone asks for an attorney or a CPA in that niche area, they say, oh, of course you should use these people. A number of our members use them. You really want to focus on owning a niche. Same with owning a niche online. You have to be the one that Google loves so much that when I Google in any question, like for example, say I'm a construction firm in Minnesota and I need some better contracts. Contract law, contract lawyer, construction, Minnesota, you have to get Google to love you enough to bring people to your microsite. And then a microsite isn't just a mini website. It's not like a little teeny website on the opposite of steroids. It is actually a multifunctional website that can gather people's information and then use that information to bring them closer and closer to buying from you, to thinking you are the thought leader and you are the experts that they actually want to pay for. Now here's what's great about niche marketing, especially with microsites. Are you ready? In a world full of cheaper, commodity price pressure, get it done cheaper, when you are perceived as the best, the expert, guess what happens to your prices? People become willing to pay for you because they perceive your expertise to be far greater than that of other firms. So let me talk a little bit about microsites. Microsites are always built on a certain type of platform. Now, a lot of websites are very good websites, but they aren't actually built to gather information about people and to give information back to people. And so microsites are built very specifically in a specific way. And now say you had a construction practice and you wanted to, say you're in a law firm that does a lot of contract law with contractors, and you do a lot of different types of legal services for contractors. You own the niche, so you're the number one law firm to go to in that area, and you want to build a microsite. So the first thing you do with a microsite is you make sure it has lots of great content about what it's like to be a contractor and the legal ramifications of being a contractor. So if I go there, I think, wow, these people rock and roll. And then the important part is you also have some gated content. And by gated content, we mean, oh, you know it, you've seen it on the web. To get our free white paper, to download our free ebook, you have to put in your email address. And what a microsite does then with the email address is it can automatically send updates to the person who signs up. So say I download a white paper and give you my email. 3 days later, your microsite can automatically feed me an email that says, hey, did you enjoy our ebook? If you like that ebook, you might want to preview this webinar. You might want to come to this webinar. Or you might want to download another ebook that we have. So what a microsite does is it captures the information of the person and helps engage them in reading more and more and learning more and more about you. And what we've learned from microsites and niche marketing is by the time someone actually picks up the phone and calls you, they think you are the one to hire. As a matter of fact, last year we had this really funny circumstance where I got an email from a CPA firm in a different state that I had never heard of and was not in our contact management system. And basically it said, do you have enough time to take us on as a client? They had spent so much time previewing our content on the internet and looking on the internet about us and our competitors that before I even called her, she had already chosen our firm and decided that we were going to be the one. At that point, price just isn't really a big deal. Price is not the important decision factor anymore. So let's go on to social. Well, the thing about social is I have a love-hate relationship with social. Now, I have a couple of people in the room here who have a love-love relationship with social and who pretty much think social media can do anything. I remain skeptical. I'm in that generational divide where I lived most of my life without social media and probably could live the rest of my life without social media as well. However, if you're not using social well, I think you're missing a big opportunity. Now, you can tell if you're not using social well if you have nothing on your face or on your LinkedIn company page and nobody tweets or Twitters or whatever else they want to make jokes about the name of Twitter. And Facebook is just a few pictures of companies' parties dated to 2011. And then we forgot about that because we no longer have a recruiting problem, for example. That means you're not really using social media to create leads or, very importantly, to nurture leads, because social can be a great way to do this. For example, on Saturday night at my business partner Dawn Wagonar's house, we had our firm party, and the theme was Ingenuity Goes to the Prom. And every single staffer had to dress approximately like they dressed at their high school prom, which of course left me in light blue flowers. Wasn't my favorite thing, but I'm willing to do anything for the good of the team. Now, I will tell you this morning, it's Tuesday morning, our pictures of the prom were posted on the Ingenuity Facebook page on Monday mid-morning. By Tuesday morning, we had already had 1,200 unique views of these photos. And it was 2,000, Courtney tells me. I'm promising you that wasn't my mom refreshing the page 2,000 times. It was 2,000 different people went to take a look at our firm party pictures. And I have to admit, those pictures are really gorgeous and really fun to see, and they're all on Ingenuity Marketing's Facebook page. But when 2,000 different people in 24 hours want to look at the photos of your party, then you are just starting to crack the value of social media. There's so many things you can do on the social to generate leads. You can search for, in Twitter, for example, you can search for people looking for certain things. International tax accountant, for example. And then you can tweet back to them. Hey, how'd you like a half an hour free consultation with our international tax people? And that's how one firm I know generated 7 figures of new business in a very depressed economic area, because they were all over social media, they knew how to use it, and they didn't just regard Facebook as sort of the place where we put what used to be a photo album for our recruiting team. Social can be both a lead generator, but even more importantly, a lead nurturing device. Speakers Bureau, absolute favorite of mine for lead generation. And lead generation is so tough, ladies and gentlemen. Think about it this way. In 1987, when I started in accounting marketing, there was no business development person full-time knocking on doors trying to take our clients away from us. It's changed a bit in the last 30 years for sure. And now you really have to be out there and you have to develop a reputation and a presence. And I would say if you have anyone who can speak, a speakers bureau is the #1 way to do it. What you say, we tried. We went out there and spoke to a few groups and we talked to a few people, but it never amounted to anything. I'm going to tell you there are some secrets in how to do this. Hang on for a second. The only bad thing about talking all the time is it's pretty dry in this part of the world. When you develop a speakers bureau, you actually have to think about it as a system, because once again, you're starting a conversation with people as opposed to selling people. So you really have to get it going as a system. And we have kind of 3 steps. The first step is preparation, then packaging, and then actually getting it out there. So what we do is, First of all, we prepare. We look for sellable topics. And the most important thing to do is you really look at your audiences and you say, what do they want to hear about? So if they want to hear about the latest tax tips, go ahead and pitch that. If they want to hear about maybe a case that happened recently, a lawsuit or something that affects them, you need to be able to pitch that. So you really have to set up a strategy for who you want to talk to and what they want to hear. Now here's the most important part of preparation. You really need to make sure that your speakers, and I would start with just at the most 2 or 3, your speakers are really prepared to speak. Because when you're speaking, it's not just the words you say. And I have listened to speakers who read their remarks to me, and their remarks are really smart, but I don't care because I don't like them. I don't want to buy from them. I don't believe them. You really need to take some time with a speaking coach and get that right. It's something we do with a lot of people. And you also want to be able to have really good topics. And you want to make sure that you don't fall into the trap that almost all professionals fall into. It's called TMI, too much information. I once helped an estate planning attorney develop some speeches for a cold audience. And we filled up the seminars for him, and then he did a program. And I was sitting in the audience as if I were an audience member. And the woman at the end of his program said to me, I'm going to take all this information to my attorney. This was so helpful. And I thought, uh-oh, he's giving her so much information that she can do it herself with her own resources. When in reality, he needs to create some concerns and worries in her mind and give her some information so that she makes an appointment with him. So remember always, when you develop your topics, help them, help your professionals, make sure that they're not giving away the baby with the bathwater. Wrong metaphor, giving away the store. On the other hand, the worst speakers are people that come in and say, you have this problem, you have this problem. Well, if you buy from me, I'll fix it. Have this problem, have this problem. Well, if you buy from me, I'll fix it. And give you no real stats or information or tips. So there is this nice middle ground between giving people some helpful information and also whetting their appetite so they want more. The second step is packaging, because you really have to look at the groups that you want to speak to. You can send out your own invitations and create a group, but we have found that it's better to speak to groups that someone else has already paid to create. So you get a list of, say, 10 associations you want to talk to. You need to, first of all, create a speaker biography with a photo and preferably a little videotape demonstrating that they can actually speak to an audience. And then you want to define all the organizations you want to speak to. And then you want to decide how often you talk to them. Now, many of the groups we talk to have volunteer programming committees. And so I will tell you, you can call them once and they don't call you back because they're busy with their real jobs. You can email them 10 times and they don't email you back. They're busy with their real jobs. You have to know that you have to do that frequently because it's really a matter of timing. And then you have to pitch your topics. You have to really send out little bits of information about the topics. You need to call up the speaking organizers or the speaking committee and say, what are you looking for? How can I help? Can I create a topic just for your organization? And you have to consistently be in front of them. Now, the most important part of the Speakers Bureau, this is critical. As a matter of fact, we didn't do this for about 10 years, and we had pretty good results. Now that we do this, we have extraordinary results. I want to talk about the evaluation form. You need to hand out a piece of paper to absolutely everyone in the audience that evaluates your performance as a speaker. If you do not do this, you will have a problem. Here's why. I do dozens of speaking engagements around the country every year. 3 people will come up to talk to you after you've spoken. And then 6 other people who want to talk to you will see the 3 in line and think, oh, I'm really hungry, I'm going to go to lunch, I'll get her later. The first person will ask you some pertinent questions and talk to you for 10 minutes. And that's good. They'll give you your card and suggest that you call them. Perfect. The second person will be someone who wants to talk to you about their entire life story and their great Aunt Millie's association and affiliation with microsite marketing or whatever you're talking about. And no matter how many people are in line behind them, they will need to tell you about all 3 of their divorces and their dog's illness. And all that has happened to me. And of course, you're a speaker, so you're polite. So what the evaluation form does is it captures information from all the members of the audience about your topic and what they'd like to learn more about. And from that, when you get back to your office, you make a call and you say, I got your evaluation form. I really appreciate your comments. We may not need to speak in person, but I noticed that you have a need for blah, 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 blah. We help people in your situation. I'd be glad to set up a cost-free or free conference call and see if it's a fit between your organization and mine. And one trick about those follow-ups, so many speakers, this happens to me all the time. I know this personally. You get back from traveling, you've been out of the office for 2 days, you have a pile of stuff to do, and you don't get to those speaker evals till next week. Guess what? Every 24 hours, it falls off by 50%, the response you get. So if you actually get back to your office from speaking at a breakfast meeting, and you get back to your office and you make all those phone calls, you will be shocked at how many people want to talk to you and set up a conference call. So it's really important to go through those speaker evals and at least send them a group email with the slides, with more information, with an invitation to go to your microsite and download a free white paper, whatever, and have that all planned out, what your response will be before you even get home. Now here's the really important part of the eval form. I would like to know more about. I would like to know more about cash flow analysis. I would like to know more about, I don't know, contract law. What you have is them check the boxes. And of course, these are completely optional. And we get back evaluation forms where nothing is checked. And then we just send them a thank you email. We don't bug them because clearly they don't want to talk to us at this point. But we keep them on our newsletter list and just send them a thank you email with the slides. But for everyone that checks some of these options, we have someone to call and we have something to talk about. I would say a speakers bureau done right, done well, we do them, can absolutely launch a professional service firm or can really help the niche market take off. I mean, it can make a huge difference in your reputation, your lead generation, and your lead nurturing to be in front of people speaking about interesting topics in a good way with a great follow-up system. Let's talk about seminars. I love seminars, but of course I love to speak, so it's part of my world. Here's the do on seminars. Whenever possible, have someone else sponsor or co-sponsor your seminar with you. So just before 9/11, I was doing a series of seminars for financial services, and we would send out these really nice invitations that looked like they were handwritten with a stamp, and it was like a wedding invitation size. It was beautiful invitation, and we got about 30 or 40 people at every one. It was fabulous. They were bringing in new clients hand over fist. And then September 11th happened, unfortunately for so many of us. And the two seminars that were scheduled in the next 2 weeks, we had one person come to each. Seminar marketing can go really up and down depending on what's going on in the economy and in the world. During the Great Recession, seminar marketing was tough, but it's coming back again. Seminars are a lot like webinars, except that if you have a really great invitation, you can do some lead generation at seminars as well. Now, a couple tips for seminars. If you're doing seminars, the thing you want to sell at the seminar is having an appointment with you, not all of your services. Make sure you bring someone along who can sit there with an appointment book or a computer and actually set up the appointment with the people, the prospects sitting in chairs right there. Seminars are used for such a wide variety of things, but you can do them both for lead nurturing, bringing together groups of people who already know you and know you're expert, and giving them some more information, or for lead generation. I do like to have other groups sponsor my seminar. Not only does it save me money, but again, it's sort of them saying, hey, you should listen to this woman. She's smart. It gives you sort of the emboss of a better possible seminar. And my favorite thing actually is when bankers, lawyers, and accountants get together and all three of them do a seminar for all of their clients, and they invite all of their clients and they all talk about different aspects of the same subject. And that has been tremendously successful for many professionals that I know. I'm going to talk briefly about webinars, which we do a lot. And I love webinars. I think that they are a really low-cost way to get your thought leadership in front of people. Here's the way to fail at webinar marketing. Tell an attorney who's not very technical that he or she has to give a webinar to some people. It's a sheer failure because, first of all, webinar systems, the technology to support them are not difficult, but it's another new thing to learn. Second of all, a webinar is a little different than a seminar because you're not talking to live people. And you have to sit there and you have to pretend that you are. It's a little different skill. Anyone who generally speaks in a monotone might be able to do a seminar, but they will kill their audience on a webinar. That's why I always do a weather report from St. Paul, Minnesota when I start a webinar, because at least I tell the audience, I'll try not to bore you. Webinars, again, are my most favorite lead nurturing. I have leads all over the country. As a matter of fact, I have leads all over the world. And it's an easy way for all of them to choose to come back and hear from Ingenuity. And I will tell you that virtually every time I do a webinar with someone I've been kind of circling around who's a lead, and we do a webinar and they sign up for the webinar and listen to it, virtually every time we then get a call from them saying, hey, we're ready to get serious now. It's a fantastic lead nurturing technique. Now let's go off the internet and go back to old-fashioned networking. A lot of people say that networking doesn't work like it used to work. I completely agree. When I used to go to the chamber in like 2003, there would be 3 accounting firms there and only 1 really active. If you go to the chamber in 2013, there's 33 accounting firms there. 7 of them have full-time business development people who go to practically every event at the chamber. And 6 of them have young partners who are all trying to build their business who show up quite a bit. And so what's happened is networking is now a sport for everyone. And if you want to get your game going with networking, you have to be a lot better at it. Let me tell you 2 tips that I think really help people with their networking. Number 1 is whether you're an attorney or a CPA, you are a professional advisor to companies. So one of the best networking events that I have ever helped people create is when they call up their client, say you're the attorney. You call up the client and you arrange a bill-free to the client, so this is non-billable, lunch with their accountant, their banker, their lawyer, and the client. And you all just have a nice social lunch together, but keep it focused on business issues. So say you're an attorney, and the accountant, of course, is close to the client too, and he's been hearing about you and thought you were, sounds like you're good. And all of a sudden he meets you in person and the client says what a good attorney you are. It so propels the networking relationship. Now contrast that to just meeting that accountant, I don't know, at a trade show or a chamber meeting. It's a much lighter relationship. This is basically your client saying you're really good, much stronger relationship. So if you're going to do networking now, do less of that sort of hit or miss type networking. Should I show up? Oh yeah, okay, I'll get dinner there anyway. I'll eat lots of hors d'oeuvres. Kind of networking doesn't work anymore. You have to be much better at it. And the second thing I would recommend is, you have these referral sources. You have 2 people or 10 people who consistently give you business. I would get a lot more organized with them. I would make a folder for each one, and I would sit down with each of them at least once a year and actually show them what a good referral is for you and maybe some samples of your work or talk about some case studies of your work. So we have a sheet called What's a Referral, Good Referral for Ingenuity, and it's 1 full page talking about what is a good referral, most importantly, what is not a good referral. And let me show you that on the next page, because a referral that does not usually work out is, for example, one person just starting their business on a very limited budget. We're a mid-sized marketing firm now, and that's not really a good fit for us most of the time. And the problem with spending a lot of time with referral sources is you can start to get these leads that really aren't good prospects for you. So it is your job to educate your referral sources on what's good and what's not good for your business. Get more organized around networking. Make sure everyone in your firm has some referral sources. Make sure you have some sort of program to reward referral sources. My very favorite referral source reward program was a very funny one done by a bank in probably the last 10 years. And they got these chocolate bars embossed with their bank name, And randomly, their business development person would just send you one of these bars, and it had the name on it, so you always knew who it was from. And it wasn't necessarily to reward a referral, although it could be, but you would just get these chocolate bars in the mail 2 or 3 times a year. And I just thought it was a very low cost, very pleasant way to say, hey, you're in my network and you're important to me. Let's talk about association involvement. This is another thing that used to work great and doesn't work as well now. And this is another thing actually that I would say CPA firm managing principals, law firm managing principals come to me and they say, well, our professionals are out there, but they just don't get anything. We're not getting any bang for our association. I can tell you why. It's because your professionals aren't going. It's because they have a hopper full of work and that breakfast starts at 7:30 and it's snowing and they don't go. And you know who gets traction in associations? Those who go. And I would say to people that there will be no budgets for associations unless they go. There will be no advertising or sponsorship of any event unless they're there. Your active participation in the association is the most important part in association involvement. Just having your name in the program will do nothing for you because 4 competitors have their shoes in the door at every single meeting frequently. Now, every once in a while, you'll meet an association that doesn't have a CPA or a lawyer who's actively present. It can be gold. There's always brain picking that people want to do of professionals. And if you show up and get involved, and most importantly, join a committee, and these are the committees I would join. New membership is a great committee because you get to meet with all the people who just joined the association. And you know what's the other really great committee to be on? You got it, the Programming and Education Committee. Because if you're choosing speakers, guess who you can make sure is in front of that association a couple times a year? Your partners, yourself, people you owe favors, your clients, people you want to hear from. Or how about a nice panel of people that should be your clients so you get to call them up and meet with them and ask them to be on the panel? Isn't that nice and tricky? Associations give you credibility and the right to rub elbows with people who are your prospects. And at the best, when you really start to own the association, everyone's saying, hey, hire this person or hire her. Or, oh, when we have that kind of problem, we go to this person. And it is a very nice, small venue for you to become famous in. But once again, putting your name in the program, complete waste of money. Email blasts. You know, I used to think that email blasts were good lead nurturing but lousy lead generation. And that's because I delete so many emails that are unsolicited from people. Delete, delete, delete is the first job of my day as I go through my email and just delete things that I didn't ask for. But let me tell you about Alan Sykes, who runs a really great CPA firm down in the southeast of the United States. Alan has really focused on one niche market, independent pharmacies, and he is determined to be the best at it, and boy, is he ever. He sends out email blasts to the associations that he belongs to, inviting them to view his video blog. And because the video blog is so, Alan is quite a character. He has a real personality and such a passion for the work he does. His videos are really real, and they're all about facts and tips and help that you can get in short 3-minute or less bursts. And Alan, because he uses both traditional marketing and very avid online marketing, including email blasts and backed up by a blog, has been continuing to get new clients across the country in a really tough market for many CPA firms. He really knows how to use the online space. Email blasts don't work very well if people didn't ask for your information at all, if they're not in association with you, if you buy an email list of people that didn't opt in, it doesn't work so well. And of course, email works great for lead nurturing because you want to stay in front of people those 9 out of 14 times to show up for them. So let's talk about content creation. Content marketing is the new buzzword, and we use it all the time at Ingenuity. We have a content department. We have people who know how to write stuff both for people and for Google, so that you show up in the search engines, and when people read the stuff, they think, oh, wow, you're really smart. It's really a tough skill these days. Now, content creation is creating ideas and packaging them up as tip sheets, as white papers, as ebooks, as whatever you have, so that when people go to your website or microsite, they say, wow, these people are really smart. Oh, yes, I do want that free tip sheet on the top 10 things you should know about XYZ. And here's the problems with content creation for most CPA firms and law firms. Number one is you have to have someone who can write. Now, I know most lawyers can write, but writing for search engine optimization and writing for this kind of marketing is kind of a different type of writing skill. So you have to have someone that can write, and then you have to have someone who really is very skilled at getting people to use content online, getting it to position you as the number one firm to choose when they have need of it. However, when you start to get this right, and it usually takes a while to tweak it until it really starts to work for you, the leads that show up for you are people you've never met, you've never heard of, and they're absolutely convinced that they want to buy from you. I've never gotten such good leads. Now, I don't always get a ton of leads from good content, but the leads you get are the same kind of leads you got 20 years ago when the banker said, you have to go to this firm, they're the only firm in town. Leads that are rock solid, already sold, you just need to send them an engagement letter. Content creation is tricky because it's a newer thing and it looks easy, but it's not easy. But we're having some tremendous success with a few firms that are brave enough to go out there and say, hey, we want to be positioned on the internet as the people to go to when people are looking for this kind of service or have this kind of problem. And I'd be glad to answer any questions about content creation, especially since Courtney Galser is sitting right here, and she's one of my top online gurus. So she's a rocket scientist at that. So let's talk about just a little bit about a pipeline. Because here's the thing about lead generation and lead nurturing. I have to be honest with you. I wish I could tell you we could do this all in 30 days. You're not going to see results in 30 days. It just doesn't work like that. So what I'm going to tell you is that when you generate a lead, a brand new conversation with someone who may or may not need your services, who may or may not be looking at your competition, and who isn't clear about when they need the service that they may or may not be buying, you have to nurture that lead. And here's what I know about CPAs and lawyers. They're some of the busiest human beings I have ever met. And they're so busy doing client work or running their firms or doing all sorts of things in the community that the very last thing that is always on their mind is nurturing a lead they met at the Chamber of Commerce 3 months ago who indicated an interest but hasn't really gotten back to them. So a pipeline's process is about making sure that you have enough leads in the pipeline so that you'll have new clients, and making sure you stay on top of those leads and you nurture them in a variety of ways so that for the time it takes for them to decide you're the one, you're next to them all the time. The worst thing to do is spend all this time creating new leads and then not follow up with them and follow up as many times as it takes, because it's really a waste of your time. So in a pipeline, what you do is all the people who are in charge of business development activities. Now you think that may be your whole partnership team. I would suggest it's not. It may be a senior attorney or supervisor, or it may be some of your partners and not some other partners, but that you meet regularly, at least once a month, to discuss what is on your pipeline, how many leads you've generated, and how you're nurturing the leads that you have. We have very simple Excel technology. Excel technology, it's funny because I remember when Excel spreadsheets came out, they were the rocket scientists. And now it's just sort of the basic thing we start with until we find a specialized application for it. But we just keep a sheet on what's in the pipeline. And we also keep a sheet of how long, we organize it by how soon that's likely to close. So if we think things are likely to close in the next month, we put them at the top. In the next 3 months, we put them next, etc. And what this does is all of the people in charge of sales meet every Monday morning, and we exchange information about what's going on with different leads. And although it's a fairly casual conversation, it has a distinct rhythm to it. So that's about all that I have for the MSI webinar today. I would encourage you all to sign up for Ingenious Review, which is our newsletter that's all about how to grow professional service firms, most particularly CPA firms and law firms. If you sign up for Ingenious Review, you'll also get notice of all of our webinars and other information about services we offer at the firm. If you want to sign up for Ingenious Review, all you have to do is, I see Elizabeth is flagging me for a question, all you have to do is send me an email, which will be on the next screen. Here, let me get this like this and go to the next screen. There's my email. You need to send me an email, and I'll be glad to send you a copy of this presentation, and I'll also be glad to sign you up for Ingenious Review in all our webinars. Are there any other questions about lead generation and lead nurturing? I'll just wait for a minute. I'll give you a weather report. Oh, it stopped snowing and it started blowing. Apparently we're going to get a real wind whip up this afternoon. So if you read Little House on the Prairie, there's one of the books called something like The Long Horrible Winter. We reenact that every year in January in Minnesota. I don't have any more questions, so what I'd like to do is I'd like to thank MSI, and I'd like to thank all of you for choosing to be on our webinar today. If you want any information about lead generation, lead nurturing, or any of the other topics I've touched on today, send me an email or give me a call, and we'll be glad to help you and direct you to the resources that are best for you. Again, thank you very much, and I hope it's warmer where you are.